Hi, everyone. Welcome to the incredible Highland Park Library. I want to welcome everyone here, community members, library staff, some of our community partners, our city council members, and especially I want to welcome our library staff that are here as well, and city staff. So thank you for the excellent work that you do every day. And I want to acknowledge the Highland Park Library leadership team. So yeah, they're over there, some of them. Mary Knox, Linda Coleman, and Chu Yang are the leadership team that run this beautiful space, this important community space every day. So thank you to them. Far from irrelevant or outdated, I have the great privilege of leading this incredible library system, our services, especially our staff who hustle every day to serve our community members in ways that involve books, yes, because we do have books, but we are not a warehouse for books. We are a community space that's about connecting people to their interests, connecting folks to resources in their community. And at the very end of the day, this is an organization that's about community care for the residents of our city, and it is a great privilege to be able to lead that work. And I've also been so proud to work alongside our great library board chair, who in one of her first acts as library board chair, personally visited all of our library locations, including the bookmobile. She learned so much about our services and our behind the scenes, in fact, that I was a little worried she was in the running for the library director. Luckily, I did not have the competition from her, which would have been fierce. But I'm pleased to introduce Councilmember Rebecca Noecker, who serves as the library board chair.
There would have been no competition. I'm so grateful to have your leadership director, Hartman. Thank you so much, and happy Library Budget Day. That's a thing. I am so honored to be chairing our library board, and as Director Hartman said, this unbelievable system. It was so fun to get to take that tour of all of our 13 library branches and the bookmobile, from seeing old St. Paul High School yearbooks at Latimer to the automobile manual collection at Hayden Heights. If you ever want to repair a Model T, that is where you go, or even cars that you have today. And to the bookmobile. I got to stand on the bookmobile after school and just watch kids bound up, and I got to hand out bookmarks and just see the way their eyes lit up as they got to choose what book they were going to take home for that week. And really just what stuck with me was the excitement, not just from our patrons, not just from our kids and families, but from all of our staff at all of our library branches who care so deeply about the work they do and who are so eager and excited to show me the poems, the jokes, the decorations, the reorganizations, the new materials that they've gotten in to tell me about the work that they do. And that passion and that excitement is what makes our system what it is. It's what people feel when they walk into these branches every day. And it's a passion and excitement that I know is shared by my colleagues on the library board, including Board Member Tolbert, who's here with us today. And it's a passion and an excitement that I know is shared by our Honorable Mayor, Melvin Carter. Something that I've learned about our mayor is that he's someone who loves ideas, and he loves learning, and he loves connecting. And as someone who loves learning and ideas and connecting, we really couldn't have a better mayor for our libraries, because that's what they're all about. So I can't wait to hear all of the exciting investments that I know our mayor is planning to make in the city as a whole and in our library in just a moment. Welcome, Mayor Carter.
There was a piece of paper behind me, and that will not do. Good afternoon, and welcome to our public library. This is funny because usually when I'm in this space, there's somebody with like a ukulele reading to children, and usually I end up getting to be up front and be made a fool of, so this is just like that. Um, I am honored and pleased to be here, and I'm particularly honored and appreciative of the introductions that I just received from two people who I learn an enormous amount from every single day. I would very much echo what you just described. Councilmember, Library Director, Noecker, as someone who I know is passionate about ideas, is passionate about learning, is passionate about sort of turning on the lights in our community so that our young people of all ages have the opportunity to be exposed to more tomorrow than they were yesterday. I have to tell you, I am pleased. It was an honor. Listen, a year ago, you know this, a year ago we had a different library director. And when former Director Pinkert told me she was moving on, my first reaction was one of great fear and trepidation. And she reminded me that we had such a fantastic team in our libraries that, you know, she sort of said, you won't even miss me because we'll move on just fine. And it is a real honor to be able to look right in-house. It's an honor to be able to look right within our team and find a leader like you, Maureen, who has just picked up the baton and run with it in the way that you are. You're an incredible leader. You're the right leader for our library. Councilmember Tolbert, it's great to see you here. Thank you for joining us here as well. Councilmember Tolbert has decided to move on to new chapters and new frontiers in his life. I shared in my city budget address earlier just the extent to which I don't know that everybody knows the extent to which I rely on you and your partnership and leadership and thoughtfulness and just a wide range of things. So I appreciate you being here, and I appreciate you being the leader you are for our community. And we all, of course, will wish you well as you still got a few months left, so don't go anywhere yet. But we're wishing you well as you look toward the next kind of chapters in your life. The great thing about our public libraries too, and I know the great thing that you take advantage of every day, Maureen, is that you don't have to do this work by yourself. You know, one of the things that you learn in any profession, I tell folks all the time, I've gotten super close with the mayors across the country who see their job in their cities similarly to how I see my job in this city. We just across the street announced an initiative to purchase and eliminate over $100 million in medical debt. And I got that idea from one of my friends who happens to be the mayor of the city of Cleveland, Ohio. And one of the things that you learn, whether you're doing a hard job or training for a marathon or running a library system, it's good to have good friends. And this library system benefits every single day from just incredible friends. So it's great to see you here, Beth. All the folks, I see your badges. Thank you for being friends, amazing friends of the St. Paul Public Library System. My first year as mayor, I poked my head in on a library staff retreat. And I poked my head in as our staff was going through an orientation, and the orientation question was, when people think of the St. Paul Public Library or visit the St. Paul Library, we want them to think, wow, this library is so what? And the first word that I blurted out was loud. Because I grew up in this era where anytime you stepped foot on the block of a public library, people said, that's exactly right. That was good, thank you. There will be more opportunities for audience participation as we move forward. Hey, it's story time. Yes, the moment you step foot anywhere in the vicinity of a library, everyone said, shh. And what we've found out as a major surprise, that's not how all of our young people learn. That's not how all of our mayors learn. What we found out is that we learn in connection with one another. We learn with our friends. We learn by sharing ideas and bouncing ideas off of one another. Today, I am excited that our library is a loud place. And not just physically loud. I think our libraries end up somewhat bustling. If you see this space when there's young people here, it ends up being kind of a bustling place. I dare you to come in and say shh to those young people. I dare you to go say shh to the young people who are visiting our children's play areas in libraries across the city. I dare you to say shh in our homework help times. I dare you to say shh to the storytellers who tell stories in over 9 different languages or who write books when young people in our community can't find books in their own native languages. What do our librarians do? Write them, publish them, provide them for our young people. This is a library that is loud, not just in the bustling nature of the busyness that occurs in our spaces, but this is a library that speaks our values loudly. And now is the time to do it. I don't know that 10 years ago, when I was a member of the library board of directors, that any of us would have imagined that we would see story after story, news stories, of people banning books in the halls of government and have those stories be about the United States of America. I don't know that we would have guessed that we could show up at a St. Paul public library and see the street full of Proud Boys showing up in masks. I asked them, well, if you're so proud, why are you all wearing masks? But showing up in masks to protest young people listening to stories. Incidentally, at one of those drag story hours that we had, we walked in and I heard a librarian say one of the most beautiful phrases I've ever heard. And that was, "This room is at capacity." That's exciting, to be a library system that is at capacity and yet still growing. It's exciting to be a library system that is making us think. You know, our library system, we get protested more than we used to. And I wear that as a badge of honor. Because in a time like today, what would be worse? What could be worse than having a library system that isn't challenging us to think beyond our comfort zones? And so when we say we are going to build a state-of-the-art, brand new, multi-million-dollar public library in our Hamlin Midway neighborhood, I want you to understand that the secret coded message that I'm trying to send our city when I say that is that we are going to build a multi-million-dollar, brand new, state-of-the-art public library in our Hamlin Midway neighborhood. You'll know what I mean next time I say that. When we say we're a space that celebrates literacy in all of its forms, that celebrates families in all of their forms, that celebrate all of the children who come into this space and practice new ways every single day to invite children and families and communities into this space, that's exactly what we mean. I'm excited about the opportunities. And you know, the flip side of every opportunity is a challenge. And Director Hartman and I have discussed the fact that it's an opportunity that today, when people come into our St. Paul library system looking for references, they're not just talking about encyclopedias. People come into our library system looking for a place to sleep tonight. People come into our library system to try to figure out how to access homework help, mental health supports, food supports for their family. You know, I joke sometimes about my parents when I was growing up. Many of you know my parents. My mother's a former teacher who served on our county board of commissioners. My father's a retired police officer. And my sisters and I used to wonder, how in the world do people know? People who are stranded on the street or experiencing unsheltered homelessness right now, how do they know when there's a storm and there's lightning and thunder and hail coming down? How do they know that it's our door they should knock on to ask to wait the storm away? And I've always thought that it was something incredible about my parents that made our house seem like that kind of beacon of safety. And let me tell you, there is no greater compliment that people can make to our public library system than to see that sign, to see that building, and know that's a place, whatever resource I need to find, that's a place that I can find it. And when they say that, to be clear, it is not a statement of endorsement of the building. It's not a statement of endorsement of the sign outside. It's a statement of confidence in the people, the men and the women who work in these spaces every day. It's a statement because they heard from somebody that this is a welcoming space. They heard from somebody that they found support. They heard from somebody that they were able to connect with resources through our St. Paul Public Library. You know, you may have heard of the COVID-19 pandemic. Just a couple of years ago, all of our institutions found themselves thrust into a space where they had to rethink everything. Our library had an advantage because our libraries have been doing that forever. We've had to, because the internet has changed the way people think about, the way people approach whether people come into our spaces. As library use around the country and around the world has waned, library use in St. Paul continues to grow. Our online collections and our online circulation continues to grow. And guess what? Our physical circulation, people who walk in and check out a book physically, continues to grow as well, grew in the last year. I think that's because of the innovation of our library staff. I think that's because we have said to our community, we're a fine free library system. Every single person in this community can afford to access the books that exist in these spaces. I think it's because we've said we're not just going to provide librarians in these spaces because we know people bring different types of needs to our community libraries. We're going to make sure that we have social workers in those spaces to help connect those needs to the resources that exist in our community. I think that's because of those 9 different languages that I told you about that we have story time in, those innovative books written in different languages, that all of the ways in which our librarians wake up early every morning to figure out how we do more than just unlock the doors. That's not good enough. We have to be able to open the doors, reach into our neighborhoods, and proactively, actively invite people into these spaces every day. And guess what? Inviting someone into this library may be a different function than inviting someone into our Arlington Hills library. And our staff has mastered that art. I think it's because no one is better than our library staff at engaging people in thinking, engaging people in ideas. I'm very proud of our Read Brave program. You know about Read Brave. And this is a perfect example of the brilliance of our library staff. I walked in as mayor and I told our former director, I said, we want a mayor's book club. We're all reading the same book. And you know how librarians have that sort of way around them of like this like exploratory, process through which you come up with a better idea than what you had when you walked into the room. And together we discovered that all people don't necessarily read the same books. Together we discovered that my 3-year-old may want to participate and she may not want to read whatever nonfiction book the mayor came up with that we should all read together as a community. And together, and the great thing about being mayor is I can say together about something that I actually didn't really do any of the work of. But together, we came up with the construct. That's right. And when I say that we came up with it together, what I mean is our library staff looked at me and said, wouldn't it make more sense, Mayor, if we built a system that everybody in our community can participate in? That the grad students can read that nonfiction book, that the preschool students can read that picture book, that the young adults can read the young adult novel. And we can, instead of like rallying ourselves and wrapping our city around one book, what if we wrap our city around one idea? and say, we're going to think about affordable housing together, and say, we're going to think about community cares together. We're going to think about wellness and mental health together through this portfolio of books through which every child in every child care to every senior home can participate in together. And we are facilitating thinking and thoughtfulness about creative things at the same time where other cities around the country are actively trying to shut those functions down. I've just described an enormous amount of excitement that I have for our libraries and an enormous amount of opportunities that exist for our libraries right now. I also acknowledge that the flip side of every opportunity is a challenge. And I want you to know that I'm aware that with the new frontiers that we've opened in our public library system have come new concerns, have come new challenges that stretch us in ways we didn't have to imagine a decade ago. I'm aware that that creates concerns for not just our literary activities as a city, but for the security and the safety of our spaces, and the security and the safety of our staff. We are going to continue to build on the investments that I just described. We are going to continue to build on the programming that I just described. We're going to continue to build on the facilities and the philosophies that I just described. And the first thing that we're going to do is continue to build on our capacity to provide first-class, 21st century, safe and secure spaces for our patrons and our staff to enjoy together. And so the budget that I'm proposing to the City Council right now is a relatively smaller, more conservative budget. We are challenged in many ways, and one of the biggest challenges of my job is figuring out how to make investments that balance our needs to both recognize our residents' and businesses' fiscal challenges, especially in an economy like today, while avoiding the mistake that our predecessors, many of our predecessors in these roles made, of disinvesting in our public library, disinvesting in our streets, disinvesting in our parks. Finding that balance ends up being the hardest part of my job every year as a part of this budget process. One of the things that became clear very quickly, and we got a lot of ideas that we're going to be building on. One of the things that became very clear very quickly in our conversations around our budget with Director Hartman is the extent to which our library patrons, our library staff, all deserve together the investments in public safety. And hopefully you know by now, when we talk about public safety in St. Paul, we're not just talking about responding as soon as possible after something terrible has happened. We're talking about making the proactive investments in space and placemaking, the proactive investments through a lens of this science called crime prevention through environmental design, making sure that we have security cameras in places, redesigning spaces. One of the things that we've learned is if I go put a basketball hoop outside, we'll come back out and we'll find young people playing basketball there because the basketball hoop is there. So we're learning the extent to which behaviors model themselves and follow the physical cues of the physical environments. And we have an opportunity, as Director Hartman alluded to, this future that isn't just about being a warehouse for books, but is about being a space where people can vividly and vibrantly and actively and safely access literacy, books, and reading together. That may require us to think differently about the way our shelves work. That may require us to, you may just look in this space. None of this space looks like the libraries I saw in the books and the movies when I was a young person, and that's a good thing. Our ability to just see across the shelves, to smile at someone else who's enjoying the library today, to know that we're enjoying these spaces safely is absolutely critical. And so that's the space that we are diving into head first with a significant investment, working alongside our director and working alongside our community partners. I have to acknowledge, in addition to our library director, I see our Office of Technology and Communications director here, Jamie Wascalis. Thank you for being here. And I see our Emergency Management Director, Rick Shute, here as well. Thank you for being here as well. It's unique that the OTC director and the emergency management director would be, oh, I'm sorry, and I also see our Office of Financial Services Director, John McCarthy, here as well. Thank you. It's not as unique that the Office of Financial Services Director would be at a budget speech. But it's unique that they would be here. And it's a reflection of our commitment to the word of the year. Directors, the word of the year is? Enterprise. And it's our joke because it was the word of the year last year and the year before. And I have it on good authority that it'll be the word of the year next year as well. But enterprise is our effort to transform a dozen different city departments into one city enterprise, working together. The biggest example of this I can use, that I used earlier, is the example of the record snowfall that we experienced earlier this year. Our Public Works Department has struggled for years to figure out where in the world do we put all of these cars during a snow emergency so that we can plow the streets. And if our Public Works Department is trying to figure that out by themselves, there just is no viable answer for them. But as it turns out, if our Public Works Department is part of a citywide infrastructure, then they are incredibly close to all of the parking ramps that our Housing and Redevelopment Authority own, all of the parking lots that exist in front of our libraries and recreation centers across the city. And this year, because we realized we're part of an enterprise, we were able to add significant value to our city. We were able to plow our streets even better without spending another cent, just because we realized that we're part of an enterprise together. That's why the directors are here together, because this investment in public safety in our libraries is not for our libraries to do by themselves. That would be ridiculous. This is for us to execute in partnership with our Office of our Emergency Management Department, with our Office of Technology and Communications, with our Fire Department, with our Police Department, and with all of our public safety staff across the City of St. Paul enterprise. We are here with you. We are greatly appreciative of the work that you, our library staff, do, that you, our library directors, do, that you, our library board, does, that you, our library friends, do, and that you, all of the people who bring these spaces to life by using them, by opening the books, and making this entire adventure worthwhile. We are appreciative of the work that you do every day to make these spaces come to life. And we can't wait to continue doing this work alongside you. Thanks for being here today.